All right. Let's get this started, everybody. All right, welcome to the live episode 10. Let's wait for some people to get in here. Late stream tonight. All right. Welcome, everybody. Oh, yeah, let's wait for some more people to get on in, and then we're going to start it. Okay, welcome in. All right, a lot happening, guys. Welcome, episode 10 of the live stream. Let's get started right away. So the biggest news, obviously, is the culture wars. Texas high school student Austin Metcalf fatally stabbed. All right, that's a tragic story. A lot of people react to it. Matt Walsh is in the news for it. A lot of conservatives and media is talking about it. So let's get on into this, right? All right. So yes, Austin Metcalf was fatally stabbed in a Texas high school. So let's see what the story's about.
7:43 is the time, and welcome back to Live Now from Fox. I'm Jeanne Francine. Turning to a developing story this Friday as thousands of people have donated to an online fund supporting a family whose son was stabbed to death at a Frisco ISD track
Welcome in,
meet.
everybody.
It's one of the ways people are coping with the death of Austin Metcalf. Right now, we want to check in with Fox 4's Ticia Muzinga, joining us live this morning with a message from the family. Good morning to you. Alarming news. We continue to get updates this morning.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Good morning. Yeah, we are hoping to hear more information and get more information about what led up to the fatal stabbing of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf from court documents later this morning. But the family of Austin Metcalf, the 17-year-old, they have been just sharing stories about what kind of a man he was and details about the final moments while he was here. But police are saying that 17-year-old Carmelo Anthony, who attends Centennial High School, stabbed Metcalf in the chest after a fight at Kirkendall Stadium Wednesday morning. The family says they believe the fight started over a seating issue in the stands at a track meet. Hunter Metcalf, the victim's twin brother, told Fox News he did everything he could to save his brother's life.
And I pushed my hand on there, trying to make it stop, and I grabbed his head and I looked in his eyes. I just saw his soul leave, and it took my soul too.
I'm so sorry.
Well, police are investigating how a knife got into the stadium. Anthony is in the Collin County Jail and is charged with murder, and his bond is set at $1 million. Frisco ISD, however, is rescheduling that track meet where all of that happened. They're planning to have it next Monday at a different school, Little Elm High School. Back to you.
Okay, so very
Muzinga with Fox
tragic
4 Dallas. Thank you so much.
Situation going on. Obviously, there's a lot of people talking about it. It's a very political situation. Definitely in the culture wars right now. Is it a race situation? Is it based on purely this altercation? And the biggest noise is coming from conservatives like Matt Walsh. So we're gonna take a look at what he said. So this is what Walsh is everything you need to know about the senseless stabbing that killed Austin Metcalf at a track meet. All right, let's see what Matt has to say about this.
A white 17-year-old high school junior named Austin Metcalf was stabbed to death by a black athlete at a championship track meet, which was being held at a local stadium. I want you to listen to how the local media is reporting on what happened.
And Matt Walsh is conservative commentator.
Steve, Heather, 17-year-old Austin Metcalf had a bright future ahead of him. He was a leader on the football field and a scholar in the classroom. His dad told me he's holding on to memories and leaning deep on his faith as he tries to wrap his mind around this senseless tragedy. Wednesday morning, Austin Metcalf was at a District 11 5A track meet at Kirkendall Stadium. Around 10 a.m., Frisco police say 17-year-old Carmelo Anthony stabbed Metcalf in the chest after some sort of fight. Jeff Metcalf says it was Austin's twin brother, Hunter Metcalf, who tried to save him.
And his brother was holding him, trying to hold the blood in, and he passed. My son watched his brother die in his arms.
It's unclear how Anthony got the knife into the meat or what exactly led up to the fight.
It is senseless, according to the local news station. There was some kind of fight. But what kind of fight was it exactly? Did Austin Metcalf attack his killer first? Why exactly would somebody bring a knife to a track meet? And where exactly did the murder take place? Apparently, none of these questions seem relevant to the local Fox affiliate that aired that report. Pretty much all the reporting has been like this. You're supposed to gloss over details from the arrest affidavit, which states that the black athlete Carmelo Anthony was spotted in a tent that was reserved for Memorial High School, even though he was competing for a different school called Centennial. And that's when Austin Metcalf, who was running for Memorial High School, told Carmelo Anthony to get out of the tent. In response, one witness says that Anthony opened his bag and reached inside. Then he told Metcalf, quote, "Touch me and see what happens." And at some point, Metcalf reportedly grabbed Anthony or his backpack to get him out of the tent. In response, according to the affidavit, Anthony pulled a knife from his bag, stabbed Metcalf in the heart, and ran away as Metcalf bled out. And police say that he then threw the murder weapon into the stands in order to hide the evidence. Those are facts that look a lot like premeditation. I mean, after all, bringing a deadly weapon into the opposing team's tent during a track meet and then daring them to touch you so that you can stab them is exactly the kind of thing you do if you wanted to find a pretext to kill someone. And of course, if you had just defended yourself in any kind of legitimate way, you probably wouldn't flee the scene and then throw the murder weapon. The local news station, they don't want to talk about these aspects of the story because they might lead to some unapproved conclusions. It's the same reason they don't show you Carmelo Anthony's recent social media posts. And you can look at these two images here. As you can see, Carmelo Anthony has an evil grin while extending his middle finger towards the camera. In other images, he's hoisting a gun in the air. By contrast, here are Austin Metcalf's recent posts. He's celebrating that his hard work paid off and that he won linebacker of the year in football, as well as team VP. And also team MVP rather. And just a week ago, he was writing about his faith in God and
he's obviously comparing
so the contrast could not be more obvious or more predictable. The reason these images aren't being played in prime time by every news outlet is the same reason they showed you the childhood images of Michael Brown and Trayvon Martin and so on, instead of the images where they were wearing gold teeth or flashing gang signs. They're trying to short circuit your pattern recognition. You're not supposed to notice that posing like a thug and acting like one is a commonly accepted aspect of Black culture in this country. Everybody knows that's true, but no one's supposed to say it. But no matter how much the media tries to deceive us, the fact remains that pattern recognition is hardwired at birth. And to prove that point, consider this hypothetical, which I posted yesterday on social media. A lot of people were very upset by this post, which is why, of course, I'm going to repeat it. Here's the hypothetical. Imagine you didn't know anything. Let's say you didn't know anything about this latest incident.
Okay.
And imagine that I told you that a young man stabbed another young man to death for telling him that he was in the wrong seat. And then I told you that one young man in the altercation was white and the other was Black. And then I asked you to guess the race of the assailant.
Jesus.
Without any more information, you would know the answer immediately, wouldn't you? Every single person in the country would know the answer immediately.
Oh, we all are stereotypes.
Because young Black males are violent to a wildly, outrageously disproportionate degree. That is a fact.
All right, so obviously there's massive outrage going on the left and the right about what Mash Wallace has to say about this topic. So let's go back to ultimate tweet. So this went very, very viral. Let's see if we can find it. And we can react to the comments too. Okay, let's see. So right here, everybody. Can everybody see this? 15 million views. This got 15 million views. If I told you that a young man stabbed another young man to death for telling him that was the wrong seat, then I told you, okay, basically, pick which one you thought of a stereotypical Black male or white male. Okay. And obviously, this is making a culture war too. Are you going to blame these two young students for fighting, and they got an altercation, but the reason it got violent is because one male is a young black male and he has violent issues, or is it because something else? There's lots of questions happening and lots of people making accusations, and we don't know the whole story yet. But let's see how the market reacted. So this is Manuel Trees. Okay, we're gonna go to the comments. Okay, so Artorm. Okay, so people say you're racist. Adolf Hitler killed 6 million Jews. Leopold II killed 10 million Congolese Africans. Hernan Cortez killed 200K Aztecs. George Bush killed 1 million anarchists. Yep, black boys are just inherently violent. Okay, so there's some pushback to the notion that all black people and all young black people are inherently violent, and they have gang culture. Which don't mistakenly, some cultures of aspects of the cultures do definitely, but not all of them, right? So let's keep going. So young black males are violently to a wildly outrageous, disproportionate disagree is silly. I've gone my whole life without ever being in a physical altercation. I'm not a violent person, nor a lot of young black males I know. Terrible framing. Okay, so these are two black guys who disagree. Let's see what this guy said. There's a subset of young black males for which this is true, but to a generalize that all young black males are disproportionately violent is simply not true. Okay, I taught in a black school. Okay, so he disagrees too. A lot of people like his tweet. Let's see. Maybe black people just don't want to be told to sit in the back of the bus. Okay. How do isolated acts of violence weigh against centuries of genocide, war, slavery, and robbery at the hands of power structures compromise entry of white women in wonder? Okay. Okay. And there's other people are like, what's the point of logging the skin color of criminals, Matt? That's completely racist just because the stats majority. Okay, your argument hinges on selection bias, and stuff. People just react to that. But Matt did have some more evidence to back up his claims, right? Here, let's go all the way back to it. Okay, because he's been posting a lot about this. Okay, so this is one of the first graphics. Let's take a look at this. Okay, expanded homicide data table. Okay, murder, race, sex, ethnicity. We all know this. Okay, and this is what he's claiming. So there's a disproportionately number of Black Americans compared to white Americans, but they I guess on paper at least commit more crimes, even though they are a lower segment of the population. And people retort on that because they think that's pick and choose evidence. But let's keep going to other things that he posted, right? Because this is the biggest news that's going on. We have to cover this, guys. Okay. And then, obviously other people are chiming in. And Wokeness says 35 black school shooters in 2023, 4 Hispanic school shooters, 4 white school shooters, and 1 Asian school shooter. Okay. And obviously they have their arguments and stuff like that. But comment what you guys think. Is this a complete race culture war issue? Are people taking this out of context? Okay, and then Matt Walsh said, "You're using a definition of mass shooting that arbitrarily excludes all street crime and gang violence. So in all other words, you're telling me that if we don't count the vast majority of mass shootings committed by black males, then white males commit the most." Well, fascinating. Okay, so Grok said mass shootings in the data likely refers to the violence project's definition, 4+ victims by firearms. Okay. So this says focus on the public incident may explain that 54% of mass shootings are white and 17% of shaping debates on race. Okay. Oh, that's what Gronk's. And then obviously this is the rabbit hole guy. Okay. Guys, look at this. According to the rabbit hole, black on white, 14,689 type of crimes. White on black, 6,148. Okay. Basically saying that when black people attack white people, it's underreported, but when white people attack black people, it's overreported. And you know, you can say that's just or unjust, but that's just the argument that people are making. Let's keep going. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. And then obviously, uh, he responds to this. Let's look at this. Okay. The whoa piece of shit post. I've told multiple public transit adventure stories. Each time I felt endangered has been by white males, and once a white female. Now, the one time a man stood up to protect a woman and child on a train was a young black male to throw off two white crackheads. Okay, that's basically her retort to that. And then a woman with pink hair who thinks her personal and I don't even want to say that. How overall statistical data episode. Okay. Calling her a Karen, basically, what that means. Okay, and then, I mean, Matt just keeps doubling down on this, you know, his narrative. Um, okay, and then here he goes again. So, he said, my statement is statistically factual. How can statistically factual silly, but nobody said that every black male is violent. Nobody said that you must be violent because you're a black male. I only said that this population is responsible for a statistically disproportionate amount of violence, which is true. That's his opinion. Let's keep going. And then obviously Jason Whitlock reacted to that. Let's see. And then okay, so I guess here is more. Oh no, that just men and women. Okay, let's see. Okay, this is the most recent tweet he put up. This was today. Okay, even if we took the FBI hate crime data seriously and ignore the fact that the FBI has no interest in anti-white hate crimes and will reflexively assume that violent attacks against whites are hate crimes, whites are still underrepresented amongst hate crime offenders, 50% of offenders, but under 60% of the population. Okay. And what does it say? In 2023, the FBI reported 11,862 hate crime incidents involving 13,829 offensives. Okay. I mean, it does back his evidence, but he is using the culture war stereotypical nonsense that, you know, either we have to acknowledge or we have to grow out of, or we have to address it, which he is directly doing, right? And people like this will. Okay, hey, look at this. Okay, let's see what this says. Okay. Hassan said, straight Klansman territory here, by the way. Okay, Hassan lived in a $10 million mansion in a overwhelming white neighborhood. Why didn't he move to Compton? Could have gotten a much better deal on the real estates. Okay. Just making the argument that, you know what, he might criticize Matt's point, but he's not going to move to the ghetto. Right. And this is the thing. So, do you guys believe that this is a, you know, a race incident, or is it just, you know, a violent altercation? There's a lot of people commenting that, you know, this is perpetuated on, you know, the young black male. Maybe took things out of context, and he might have gotten violent. Um, you know, I guess we will never know the full story until the investigation is completed. But obviously, people making conclusions, and you know, we can just look up the most recent one, I guess, right? You know, because this is the story that's trending, right? Austin Metcalf. And let's just see what Jason Whitlock has to say about this.
Treat Austin Metcalf the way the Cowboys treated George Floyd, taking a knee all over the place? What's more of a tragedy? George Floyd overdosing on fentanyl under the knee of Derek Chauvin, or this 17-year-old boy, honor roll student, devout Christian, stabbed in the heart at a track meet? But no one's outraged. Or, no, that's a misnomer. People are outraged. But these idolatrous or these idols that have been installed in our culture, let's see if they have a word to say about this. I don't think they will. Because we've seen this before. Do you remember the shows I was doing a year and a half ago about the kid Ethan Liming? The 17-year-old, I believe, high school football player in Akron, Ohio.
Yeah, he's making the argument that when
Who got beaten up
black people attack
and
white people,
killed
nobody reports on it.
in the
But,
parking lot of
okay.
LeBron James's I Promise school.
That's controversial. Everybody has an opinion about that.
Everybody goes deathly silent. When the white kid with the promising future gets killed by young black men. The boys that killed Ethan Lyman, they got 18 months in prison. They were found not guilty of involuntary manslaughter. A dispute over someone shooting water pellets at these two young black boys turns into the death of Ethan Liming.
Okay, so basically, another black commentator making the case that it is a race. It's a race thing, right? This is a total culture war battle that's happening right now, guys. And then people like this are just like at Tunis said there will be no protests, there will be no national outreach. In a few days, the 17-year-old boy Austin Metcalf will be forgotten. Why? Because he is white and his murderer is black. White lives matter. Okay, this got 8.8 million views. Okay, this is what the market is saying right now, okay? Right or wrong, let's see what the comments say, right? I'm tired of it. All I want... I'm tired of it. I want all white areas where we can be safe and live in peace. Okay, that's kind of a nationalist. Segregation would be great, actually. Wow, these guys are going at it right now. My gosh. I don't even want to read further into this. Let's keep going. This is horrible. Right lives matter. Okay. So what are we going to do about it? The spineless father who already gave the guy who made the conscious decision to stab his son and take his life. Okay. This is sad. Since you're saying this, there'll be no protest. Let's see what that guy said about segregation. Let's see what the market said about that. Okay, let's see how people react. Segregation would be great, actually. White culture is a problem. Yeah, it would be great. It would be great. Racist white people would be banned from partaking of any people of color traditions and customs and pop culture. They have no rhythm or actual talent, anyways. That does not involve stealing land, money, or corrupt lives. Okay, now that's a total race bait thing too. I mean, they're going at it. Okay, this is right here. This is the reason why BLM PSYOP was funded to create division between whites and blacks. Divide and conquer. You've been socially engineered. I actually agree with that. Look at that. And this right here is the reason the BLM PSYOP was funded to create the division between whites and blacks. Okay. I mean, maybe not the George Floyd thing completely, but definitely culture wars in general are meant to divide the American people, the left and right, etc. Just your neighbors, right? It would be, it wouldn't, you dumb fuck. It would just lead to more segregation. What's next? All whites. But oh, you don't have a blonde hair. LOL. Okay, obviously. Yeah. Yeah, that's an insane comment. Segregation is the right answer to this. Oh, okay, let's go back. Sorry, guys. Oh no, we lost our spot. Okay, but let's keep going. Obviously, people are gonna make the fact that one guy's an athlete, and then one guy was posting pictures of like being with a gun and hood and stuff. And this is what they're talking about. Okay, so this is what they're this is like a major culture war thing right here. People like this. social media posts in the past weeks, okay? Austin Metcalf and his killer. Obviously, one is, posting about sports, family, and faith, and the other one is, floating off the camera with a lighter and also has a gun. So it's very stereotypical. It's definitely, race baiting in both sides. People accusing, each, and there's, actual victims. There's a victim, there's someone who's the aggressor, and then people on just an outsider making a bunch of noise about this because it is a political issue, right? And it's definitely interesting how what uh these come and go between years, and I guess just our timeline. These it'd be like just I guess racial acts of aggression that make both sides hate each other. Okay. And obviously there's people posting White Lives Matter and totally combating all this stuff. But you know what? Yeah. But let's take a move on to um what Nick Fuentes had to say about this, because he is also very, very controversial, and it's very entertaining when the left and right fight on this issue, right? Nick Fuentes. Okay. And this is his reaction, another far right guy, to this. Okay. So let's look at this. He obviously, I don't want to live around black people. I just don't. It wouldn't be irresponsible. Okay. Okay. We're going to have to look at this guy. Let's see what it's going to say. Obviously, this is called the far right. We have to look at the opposition here. The far right, Nick Fuentes, anti-Semite racist, has to say about the death of Austin Metcalf.
And I will tell you this as plainly as possible. I don't want to live around black people. I just don't. It would be irresponsible if I had a wife and kids to live near black people. It just would be. And that's not to say that every black person is violent. It's not to say that every black person is the same way. But we watch the news. We read the papers. When you drive downtown in Chicago, you know who you got to look out for and worry about when you're thinking about whether you're going to get carjacked, when you're worried about catching a stray bullet, when you're worried about who's going to pull up on the side of the road and literally shove a rifle in your face and steal your iPhone or shoot you point blank, execution style, in Lincoln Park. We know who's doing it. I don't want to live near them. I don't want to be near them. They make me nervous.
Wow.
That's a survival instinct. And the way this story unfolded, it's sort of interesting. Apparently, this white student, this Austin Metcalf, confronted a friend of the killer, presumably black also, and said something like, hey, you're sitting in the wrong spot. You're in my spot, something like this. And that's when the black guy jumped in and stabbed him to death. Unfortunately, we just don't know. When you're on the subway, when you're driving in your car, when you're in the city streets, you don't know whether the black person in proximity to you is one of the good ones or one of the ones who is going to summon an unbelievable, I mean, literally for people like us, an unthinkable level of spontaneous brutality, senseless and merciless violence in an instant. We don't know. There's ambiguity. You're sitting on a subway. You look across. You see someone acting strange or aggressive. Is this someone who is going to pull out a knife and in 2 seconds slit my throat and kill me? Or is this just someone who's having a bad day? We don't know. I'm not willing to risk my life to find out. It's not worth it to me. I'm not willing to put myself in a position to find out.
Okay, that's obviously what the far right has to say about this issue. And people claim, and we can just go to his page and see what actually he has to say. Because I mean, this guy, like him or not, he is a racist. He's going to be a one of a candidate and a formidable opponent on the right. People have to watch out for this guy, and this guy has a following. Okay. I mean, but here, let's see what the comments said under this. Okay, so this is how the market reacted to that video. What about the culture that led? Okay, this is a good response. Okay, what about the culture that led a white kid to put his hands on a black kid twice before getting stabbed? What about a culture that believes it's acceptable to physically confront someone for sitting in the wrong place and not moving? What about a culture that assumes that the right to take matters in its own hands instead of involving the proper authorities? And what about culture that watches its own children get their head blown off in schools by classmates and others still refuses to lift a finger and address its daily obsession with guns? More than white people should be nervous. Okay, he's making the argument that, you can look at all these gang crimes, these thefts, these murders, criminal gangs, but you know what? School shooting statistics overall show that school shooters are white. That's the argument that this guy's making in a retaliation to the far right. Let's see what the other people say. If a black person said, "I don't want to live around whites," it would be irresponsible to my kids to live around whites because most whites are predators. Okay, this is people saying, and then obviously people saying Nick Fuentes is the crown. What about white people killing hundreds of thousands of brown people in the Middle East? You guys are just scumbags and makes no sense. Okay, obviously there's a lot of black people are all around the globe while the population US, okay. And then more people say, why y'all be upset he doesn't want to live around y'all? This is weird. He has a right to. Okay. And just people hidden back at, their narrative that, the far right thinks that, black people are the problem and black people are the ones perpetrating most crime. Not saying in most communities that it's not the instance, because there are communities where it's, gang violence and specifically black culture. But, you can't just throw everybody into a pot and, call it the same. Right or wrong, who knows? And this is what he has to say about
Of
this.
man that are taught to share. You cannot have people living by the laws of man that are taught to share and to be a gentleman and to be considerate, taught to turn the other cheek and be Christian. People that are wearing a business suit on their way to their job, living alongside people that are shooting and killing to get to the top of the heap, to get to the top of the hill. You can't have them living, because if we were to live by the laws of the jungle, it would look like Nazi Germany. If we were living, if whites were living by the same rules as the blacks, it would look like Vikings. It would look like pillage and torment and ingenuity and innovation in brutality that they could never fucking conceive of, systematic violence that they are not even capable of. But we don't live like that because it's wrong, because we've evolved past that.
Wow.
And we don't want to return to that.
Dude, this is it.
And so something here has got to give. And I don't think that we should be the ones giving. The question is, how long is it going to take for white people to summon the courage to create a political solution to this problem? We have a state. We have laws. We have police. We have prisons. These institutions have legitimacy, but not for long.
Jesus.
How long is it going to take for the government to step in and restore order? If it doesn't, it's gonna get ugly. First for us, then for them.
First
It's
for us,
ugly
then for them.
now for us.
Dude.
It's an inevitability that eventually it will get ugly for the other side. It's only a question of when. That is, unless the state will enter in and enforce the laws.
Okay, so that's his second clip of why people are calling for segregation. This is insane. Okay. Let's see what other people say. If you don't shut your bleep up. You didn't evolve past nothing. Every country in the Middle East tried to appease American interests, tried to shake your hands with, yet turned around to gave us crack. You use this for modern day prisons to monitor value. You use our hatred or feed Americans. Okay, that's a long response. Okay, let's look at more. Okay. Let's be honest, we haven't evolved past, but we shouldn't return to that. Okay. There is no wide equivalent. NS Germany was a high civilization. Look it up. Looks like country from fairy tales. First thing I do is shoot the slow people in the left lane. Jesus. And obviously you got the far right in this comment section. You know, I say return to it full on Viking mode. I think it deserves a rematch. There are no longer friendly tribes who believe these types of white people and their Jewish masters are allies. Europe will have, I mean, you know, again. Pigs are really pigging out. What Nick Fuentes, the tiny white supremacist Mexican, will do. Well, whites have been violent for centuries. They wilding out in pig. Steve, by the way, bully antagonist enforcing. See, okay, so I mean, basically, you know, we can end it here and move on to the next subject. But you know, the argument is that you know what, the right commentators, left commentators are making this a culture war issue, making this a black and white issue, literally black and white. You know what? Who did wrong? Who did right? And you know, people are commenting, well, you know what? Maybe this is a race thing this time, or maybe it was that time. Either way, are we gonna get past this, or are we gonna keep going back into this inevitable cycle of you know fighting about racial stuff like this? But you know, we can move on. We can move on, everybody. So the next clip comes with Myron Gaines and Alex Jones. Obviously talking about Israel, Jews and the current state of, you know, the politics and stuff. So let's look that up, you know, Myron Gaines, Alex Jones. Okay. So this is the second biggest thing going on in the world today, what we believe. Okay. So let's take a look at this first one, all right? Myron Gaines, Alex Jones talk Hitler and World War II. Do you love Hitler like Kanye? Okay. This might be insane, guys. Let's see.
That's stupid. They just throw this term anti-Semitism around. It's like, dude, like criticism of Israel or people that are doing bad things that happen to be Jewish is not anti-Semitism. That's stupid.
But then all the people that are obsessed with, they'll say you're covering up now.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I think
you need to endorse Hitler or you're not good.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm reading Mein Kampf right now. Right. I'm a free thinker. I like to look at all different things. I don't believe a lot of the history of World War II, so I'm going to actually read Mein Kampf right now.
Mein Kampf's terribly written. I'll give you a headache.
Comment what you think.
You know what? A lot of run-on sentences.
And you got to read a lot.
Good parts of it.
You got to read a lot of history books to even understand it.
Yeah, yeah. I got the Henry Ford version.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I read the, you know, International Jew from him. Like, my thing is, I always like to read things myself and kind of make my own interpretation. But I do.
But I mean, just a bunch of bitching about land taken in the Versailles Treaty and it's and then a lot of inter-party stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
I'm just saying, Mein Kampf's a pretty boring read.
Yeah. You know, he's going to feel a certain way about the Versailles Agreement because he actually fought in the war. He was, you know, decorated soldier. So he's like, dude, what the hell? Why did we?
No, I know all about it. Iron Cross first class. Iron Cross first class, like Congressional Medal on it.
Yeah, yeah. You know,
a message runner, volunteered, nerve gas twice. I've read about 500 books on World War II.
Yeah, no, I know you know. But for the audience, though, like I think with Hitler, I think he's probably one of the most misunderstood and lied about figures in history. You know, I that's why I'm doing my own research. I'm in the middle of it right now, going through, but I'm always reluctant to believe the official narrative on things.
Well, I look at it like this. Hitler got 24 million Germans killed and 26 million Russians. I mean, you know that like World War II for everybody else was like sidelines. I mean, the U.S. only lost less than 1 million people. And it was
a terrible time.
And, you know, both my grandfathers were, you know, in the Army Air Corps and both almost died. So it was real for, you know, not saying, but I mean, 95% of the death was the Germans and the Russians killing each other.
Yeah, yeah, it was a horrible time.
It was like the ultimate slug out.
Yeah, it was literally.
And so, you you know, and I mean, Hitler and Stalin divided Poland.
Yep.
I mean, Hitler just leveled Poland, just leveled it.
Yeah.
I mean, did the Poles deserve to get blown up?
No, I mean,
thousands of Stuka bombers just dropping bombs on their houses.
You know, I think, and
the Polish troops on horseback being mowed down by the Wehrmacht.
Yeah, no, I mean, war is horrible, man, and unfortunately, like, you know, civilians die a lot in war, and it's horrible, man. I think the loss of any life, regardless of religion, skin color, background, you know, is horrible, right? And that's why I'm like so. You know, I speak out against what's going on in Gaza right now, because we're like seeing it right now in like real time. But you know, it's just an unfortunate reality of war. Unfortunately,
well, Hitler believed totally in survival of the fittest, and so he believed if the Germans couldn't beat the world, they deserved to die.
What chapter was that in Mein Kampf?
I mean, this is speeches.
Oh, in speeches, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm going through the book now. Well,
I mean, the books, you know, long before he even got, you know, elected in 33.
Of course. And then, yeah, now they're like translating his speeches and stuff. You know, I think he was, you know.
Well, he was definitely facing transgenderism, the whole leftist cult.
For sure.
That was all going on. So all that stuff.
Transgender books.
And people demonizing the Germans and running them down, all the same leftist crap. All that's there. I'm just saying then mobilizing Germany, building it up. You know, British intelligence didn't run him, but set him up. Edward VIII was supposed to set up an EU. They had peace treaties. Rudolf Hess.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, Hitler got chunked.
Yeah,
they had all the German codes. They had the Enigma. They didn't really get it off a submarine. He was set up.
Yeah, they cracked the code.
He wasn't as smart as people act like.
Yeah, no.
He was also methed out of his head.
No, they definitely cracked the code early on. But what I will say is, you know, he definitely brought Germany back from the brink of collapse because obviously the Versailles Agreement.
Do you love Hitler like Kanye?
I wouldn't say I love him.
I love Hitler.
But I think that, a lot of the history that's been written about him has been.
Well, I think it's a testament to how much people hate the establishment now. That people think the world's flat. I'm not saying you do, and that birds aren't real, and that. Well, let me tell you, my dad's dad did his 22 missions out of North Africa and Italy.
Yeah.
Then he volunteered for some more. Then he got Purple Heart, and they told him, "You're done." They put him as an officer over food supply deals.
Yeah.
They went in, and then he was there for years, Italy, and then into Germany. Mm-hmm. And he wouldn't tell me many stories. He told me a few, but he told my dad about it. It wasn't too pretty when they got there.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, World War II was.
I mean, we're talking dead bodies as far as the eye can see.
Oh no, it was atrocious. But what I will say is, like, when it comes to, you know, post World War I, he definitely, you know, revitalized Germany and brought it back from the brink of extinction, brought the country back.
Well, that's because economically,
made it one of the strongest economies. And
the proto-globalists were suppressing Germany. That's a fact.
Yeah. I mean, he was the first one to arrest the Rothschild. So, you know, I think no one ever talks about this, and they never teach you this in history. And, you know, I get it. He was evil, blah, blah, blah. And I get it. Like, there's good and bad people.
Well, even Putin came out last month and said the British Empire started both World War I and World War II.
For sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Is it all wars are run by bankers, right? Like, that's just what it is. Like, they fund both sides. The Rothschilds, we know that they do this. They play with
Okay, so
manipulate
have that
gold.
side of the argument, obviously. You have people like Alex Jones and people like Maron Gaines talking about, you know, if Hitler was good, what is his stances on Israel and stuff like that. And obviously, Maron Gaines got a chance to speak also with Owen Short too on the same time. Let's see if we can get his reaction on that. Because, I mean, this guy's been everywhere talking about this. Right. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, Myron Gaines, Harrison Smith. Let's see if we can leave that. Because I know they were talking about this earlier. Okay.
etc. But the Israeli angle is completely gone from the movie. And I thought to myself, why did I find it interesting that like in that film, they talk about the Italian mafia, they talk about the CIA, etc. But the Israeli angle is completely gone from the movie. And I thought to myself, why didn't they not mention, well, we know obvious reasons why not. But then you actually like research the movie and you find out, well, Oliver Stone's real name is Silverstein. Then you find out that the guy that funded the movie was a dude named Arnon Milchan. Arnon Milchan is a Jewish Zionist billionaire who literally is a spy. He admitted back in Israel on Israeli television that he was a spy for the Israeli intelligence agency. And not only this, it gets crazier. He was an asset for their unacknowledged nuclear weapons program.
Right.
And then you find out, well, JFK, what was his big beef with Israel? Their nuclear program. So the guy that funded the movie for JFK in America left out a critical piece of the issue with the JFK situation in the movie, and he was an intelligence asset for the program that JFK was trying to stop.
That sounds like a coincidence.
Crazy.
That sounds like a crazy coincidence to me, Myron. How dare you draw lines?
I call it a coincidence at this point.
Yeah,
a coincidence at this point.
All right, so obviously, he's going on a tour, talking about how, America's influence, has been compromised by, a foreign country visit. But I want to find the Pacific clip because I know he's talking about this. Let's see, because I know he was on with Oren. But yeah, people saying this guy's conspiracy theories. People saying this guy's taking a lot of things out of context. But yeah, what do you guys think? This guy's obviously claiming that he likes Hitler. He thinks it's all about the Jews. You think? All right, this is what he's just tweeted. He said, "Myron game. LOL, if Ben had picked Israel over USA, we all know it would be Israel 109 times." Okay. And I know Fresh and Thick is, these guys have like a dating like podcast and everything, but like he's so, like grifting and all these people talking about Israel now, even though they're in the dating game. Let's see the recent one he put. Let's see.
They're going to take the Gazans, move them to Egypt and Jordan. Trump is going to strong arm them into taking them at the threat of withholding their financial aid. They're going to take them. They're going to level Gaza, and they're going to turn it into a vacation paradise that is a part of Israel. It's waterfront property. It's going to become Dubai Part 2. That is what's going to happen in Gaza, chat. It is going to become a vacation spot for Israelis and rich foreigners. That's what they're going to do.
Oh, no.
They already showed videos of people auctioning land in Gaza. It's going to be an enormous real estate project that's going to bring the region billions of dollars through tourism and trade. And this, my friends, is why many suspect that Netanyahu allowed Hamas to invade Israel on October 7th. Many people believe, which nowadays you can't really even blame them for thinking this, but many believe that he allowed them to traverse one of the most secure checkpoints and borders in the world. We're talking about a small paramilitary group with old piece of shit World War II weaponry was able to somehow break into the most guarded border in the fucking world with the most sophisticated technology in the world and come in and kidnap hundreds of Israelis at 6 a.m. Then is a response. Love.
Okay, I don't want to get too far into his stance on that, but obviously we already know that people like this, people like Alex Jones, Nick Fuentes, Myron Gaines, throw Candace Owens in there, and we'll get to Candace Owens too because she had an interview with Iron Carroll. Are making about the Jews and the Israel all of a sudden, it's the hottest topic. Everybody's talking about it. Forget the culture war, forget the politics, forget left and right for a second. Everybody's talking about, this foreign country of Israel. And if it's good or if it's bad, if it's right or wrong, if it's just or unjust, people have questions about it. So we're going to have to take a look at it now. Candace Owens and Ian Carroll on Israel. Okay. Owens. Okay, here we go. Yes, we have to study the opposition, guys. Come on. As an independent, as a centrist, we have to look at the opposition. We have to study the far right, the far left. All right, let's see. Okay, so Ian Carroll and Candace Owens on the Goldstein saying we created pornography because it hates Christ. All right,
What makes the soul of America?
And they've been
right. The biggest conversation, man. I'm telling you. Okay, let's see.
It is subversive in every way, not just politically and blackmail, but also just culturally and dividing families and dividing what makes the soul in every way, not just politically and blackmail, but also just culturally and dividing families and dividing what makes the soul of America.
And they've intentionally introduced it everywhere. And there is I'm sorry, but a direct corollary from when they took the Bible out of the classroom. That was all very intentional. Understand, you should go back and learn in history who pushed for that to happen. You had the 60s generation. The reason the CIA was doing this was because they wanted to crush Christian culture. I mean, explicitly, there's a guy, what is his name? I think it's Al Goldstein. You gotta pull up this Wikipedia, Skylar. If you could pull up Al Goldstein on Wikipedia, explicitly said, like, we created pornography because we hate Christ. This is the literal quote. It's so crazy to read this.
Wow.
Here it is. It's, quote, "The only reason that Jews are in pornography is that we think that Christ sucks. Catholicism sucks. We don't believe in authoritarianism. Pornography thus becomes a way of defiling Christian culture, and as it penetrates to the very heart of the American mainstream, and is no doubt consumed by those very same wasps, its subversive character becomes more charged," end quote. I mean, that is just unbelievable. Like, whoa.
100%.
It's like, take it to the bank. We created pornography because we hate Christ. And it's on Wikipedia. This is not like a conspiracy theory. And so this guy says this, and you go to yourself, okay, everything that is happening is antichrist, right? So we know that as Catholics, you keep your families together.
Wow.
You're supposed to save your virginity. We don't believe in birth control. Everything that's happening now is counter to Christ culture. It's literally antichrist. Okay.
Okay, so obviously, they're making the argument that the reason why the
subversive
Jews
in
made
every way,
porn
not just politically
is because they don't like Christians, and it's something nefarious going on with Israel and all that. Let's keep going. Okay, look, Ian Carroll and Candace Owens on blackmail. All the people that think Jews control the world, you think will do pass laws. Let's look at this, guys. It's a little long, but let's see if we can find. Okay, let's look at this one right here. For sure.
know what kind of leverages people get over politicians, and eventually you wind up with Rabbi Shmuley hanging out with you and declaring anti-Semitism the greatest health crisis in America today,
Absurd.
or whatever it is.
Absurd. And this kind of really gets right to
By the
the
way,
crux
you
of
have to be
everything that's
fair.
happening,
Some of
which
these
is
people are a
you're
little bit
seeing actually the left and the right
haters.
unite on this one topic of recognizing that it's really wrong what's happening in Palestine. And this is such, to me, just a humanitarian issue, humanitarian approach. And they're trying to win this issue with smears. And it's crazy. And you're a perfect example of that. So you've really had, I would say, your come up. I love their narrative that he came out of nowhere. He must be funded. No, actually, he's been on TikTok for quite some time going through grocery aisles. If I know that some older people were not on TikTok, and I'm kind of generation Instagram is where it stopped. But when I finally got on TikTok, and you're a big deal on TikTok.
Blew up on
TikTok, just going through the grocery aisle talking about who owns what. And then when the Israel-Palestine thing happened, you were very clear about your position on this. And obviously, when Elon Musk and you got into that back forth, things hit another level because you were so sensible about speaking about why it is that Americans would not feel allegiance to Israel,
And
which
they're
is
both
outrageous. It's so
pro-Palestine.
weird
Let's be
that
fair.
they think that they're going to
These
try
guys
to
are both
psychologically convince us that we have no right to not
pro-Palestine.
support a foreign nation by calling everybody anti-Semitic.
And then
And so to
passing
watch them
censorship
do,
laws.
and then, yeah, we're just going to pass censorship laws. We're 350
That'll
million
work.
of you are just not going to be able to say anything bad about
All you
Israel.
people that think that Jews control the world, you know what we'll do? We'll all pass laws that say you can't say that. That'll teach them. Like, clearly these people have never taught young kids. When you teach young kids, you learn that you can't tell young kids, like, you can't do that double think with young people these days. They see right through it. And it only enhances their conviction and actually creates more real anti-Semitism, as well as just, basic noticing of facts.
There is that noticing of facts that's happening. I think this book here has done more damage than anything that you or I could ever say. And I actually wanted to bring up this book, Chaos, because they are totally chaos. But just to be clear for you guys that are watching this at home, it was a CIA operation, and they're doing it right now. So if you're wondering why all of these random accounts are suddenly saying that I'm funded by Qatar, I absolutely am not funded by Qatar. I'd like to be, by the way, Qatar, if you're watching, like, I'm not opposed to reading some ads for you. Like, it's totally fine because everybody else works with you, including Bibi Netanyahu, who's going through a Qatar trial right now, which is the rich irony of all of this. You're not funded by Qatar.
No, I'm not funded by anyone. I'm poor.
So this is amazing. So I was reading this because I do a book club here. The Chaos was born out of LBJ's, the Chaos CIA program was born out of LBJ. So JFK gets shot. LBJ becomes president of the United States and just reversed his course on everything that JFK was doing in terms of his foreign policy with Israel. And he's getting them weapons, he's getting them money, he wants war. So we're right back in that circumstance where it's like war. We're talking about war with Iran. And then there were these natural student protests that were happening because people were against the Vietnam War. And LBJ didn't believe that these could be organic protests. He believed that if they needed to seed the public with this idea that these protests were actually a foreign infiltration. And so they began this Operation Chaos to discredit people by pretending that they were foreign operators. And that's exactly what they're doing to me, you, and Tucker right now. And it's just amazing. And I'm like, guys, this is like, you don't just randomly just say, Candace is funded by Qatar, Ian's funded by Qatar. They're all saying the same talking point, but while ignoring Bibi Netanyahu's trial for funding Qatar to give money to Hamas, which is incredible.
So damning in so many ways. And it's not to mention that, so Chaos is the one where they're like surveilling and targeting and smearing and libeling these protesters, but that's overlapped over COINTELPRO, which was instated by J. Edgar Hoover, more so, although COINTELPRO tactics are universal, but that's actually causing dissidents to fight each other, causing spreading rumors about Black Panthers sleeping with each other's wives, spreading, salacious details that may or may not be true about Martin Luther King or other things. And to be clear, a lot of the rumors about Martin Luther King were probably somewhat true, but just sowing division amongst the ranks and getting people to fight each other. And that was all enacted by J. Edgar Hoover, who was being blackmailed by the Jewish mob for his sexual perversions at the time. And so it's such a funny and tragic rewrite of the exact same history as rhyming all over again in so many ways.
The Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. And I feel like we are right back in the 60s.
Okay, so there you go. We have two mainstream, or not mainstream, but they're basically huge on X. Commentators saying, well, you know what? Israel and the Jews obviously are controlling American laws and lawmakers, controlling how people are defining anti-Semitism, and our laws are establishing, hate speech laws and law speech codes and all that. And I mean, obviously, again, it's obviously the biggest thing right now in the news. And then Nick Fuentes reacted to it. I don't want to play that clip because obviously, we have to see what he has to say. But I mean, yeah, let's go look at Candace Owens because she's one of the main, voices for this, far right, anti-Israel, anti-establishment movement, who doesn't like foreign funding, who doesn't like, Israel. People saying that the highest comment I ever received. Okay, this video made 10 million. Okay. We're not getting into that. Let's see else. What else? And she just goes on it, um let's see if we can find anything else on this. Okay, okay.
And you never know what.
I'm trying to find the one where they talk about the Pacific like Trump administration and why the Trump um you know Okay, so let's see this one, last one. Yesterday an article discussed the Trump administration reporting people who criticize Israel, and JD Vance ties Israel tech firm Palantir. And Carroll says, "I think they're going to try their hardest because anti-Semitism is an essential threat to Israel."
Do you think there will come a time, because they do have these laws? Like, if I go
Oh, yeah.
down to Florida, do you think like Ron DeSantis is going to have me arrested if I criticize Israel?
I don't know how fast it'll happen, but in Europe, it's already happening. And if you notice the language, the IHRA definition, they've always been very intentional to say a non-legally binding definition, which to me is a direct setup for where they're going. And this is something that people like, to their credit, people like Whitney Webb have been talking about for quite some time, that the surveillance state is vastly, like the vast majority of the surveillance state is built on Israeli technology by Israeli tech firms. And Palantir is a great example. Palantir funded JD Vance to the nines. JD Vance is like, his whole inspiration for politics came from the Palantir and Peter Thiel space. And so those companies, they have massive AI-led databases that are just surveillance maximal. And they have surveillance on our phones, they have surveillance in our schools, they have surveillance in our EMS response systems. And those databases are cataloging everything that we're doing. And we don't really have a lot of transparency on what they're cataloging. But when I'm looking at the policies, and I'm looking at where Europe has gone with said policies, and I'm looking at the people that are behind the policies in America, to me, it looks like a direct walk from you are anti-Semitic to you support terrorists to you're a domestic terrorist. Now we have a reason to come after you.
Wow.
And I don't think that America will stand for it. I think that Americans are wise. And I think that we were raised on a culture of liberty and freedom of speech. And I think that they're trying to do a thing that is impossible to do, but it's only impossible to do because of people like you, because of people like Tucker, because of people in the media. I mean, even people like Joe Rogan, who gets called controlled opposition all the time. Like, he chose to have the conversation he had with me. He chose to have conversations with people about vaccines. Like, people will only go so far. And we have this media environment now where people that are wise and capable have enough reach to speak out and to counter narrative.
Right.
And if we didn't, I would think that we'd already be there. But I think they're going to try their hardest because it is an existential threat to the survival of the state of Israel, which is an existential threat to all Jews, is how a lot of people see it, even though that is anti-Semitic to say based upon their new speech laws.
Right. It's just absolutely incredible to see this happening. And I came up in politics with so many people who were fighting this BLM stuff, fighting these laws. And I just feel like they've become massive hypocrites because all they want is access to power. And they're willing to pretend like they have a total blind spot on this issue and just be consistent. If people have a right to say what they want to say about any group of people if they want to. And the idea that there needs to be some special laws on the book that it's now creeping into the territory of saying that your religion is anti-Semitic.
Oh, it's directly in the
The
guidelines.
Jordan Peterson teaming up with the ADL to produce a
Oh, yeah, we saw
report
that.
that didn't even spell psychology right, which was a tremendous embarrassment for that video to have gone out.
All right. Well, obviously we we understand that. Oh, that'll be the
Do you
end
think there
for the
will come a
Israel thing. We're going to
time?
move on to the
Because they do have these
China
laws. If I
tariffs.
go
That'll
down
be our last topic. We're going to cover China and tariffs. Obviously, one of the biggest things. But obviously, we're going to keep on with this. The Israel, the Jews, America, anti-Semitism, the left, the right, the good, the bad, the ugly about this from both sides. Okay, we're going to discover a little more on why people believe in Israel and Zionism. We'll get more into that too. We'll stay updated to that, but let's move on to our the next one. All right. So China tariffs. Let's see. Okay, let's see. So China imposes a 34% reciprocal tariff on imports of U.S. goods in retaliation for Trump's trade war. Everybody see that? This happened today in retaliation to Trump's, already tariffs. Let's keep going. So China said Friday that it will impose reciprocal 34% tariffs on all imports from the United States from April 10th, making good on all it promised to strike back after U.S. President Donald Trump escalated a global war trade. On Wednesday, Trump unveiled an additional 34% tariff on all Chinese goods imported into the U.S. in a move poised to cause a major reset of relations and worsen trade tensions between the world's two largest economies. Again, obviously, the biggest economy in the world is the United States. Second biggest economy is China. This practice of the U.S. is not in line with international trade rules, seriously undermines China's legitimate rights and interests, and is typical unilateral bullying practice. China State Council tariffs said in commission, obviously. And obviously, CNN is reporting that, this goes back a long time. The United States trade deficit with China goes back decades. The imbalance has lasted for at least 3 decades, with China being the U.S. most imbalanced trading relationship since 2000. While China is one of the most top destinations for U.S. exports, the sheer volume of China exports to U.S. outpace China's exports to China. So think about this, guys. We've been getting screwed. Forget about Canada, Europe, specifically China. We've been getting screwed on this trade. We owe China a lot of money. We're in debt to China. China owns a lot of factories which we have products produced within those factories in China. So China has serious. We owe China a lot of money, and China has serious game in the trade war, right? And we have to see this uptick in the production of how much our relationship has gone up between the trade, right? And then they said since return to power in January, Trump has levied 2 tranches of 10% additional duties on Chinese imports. Okay. So obviously, this is one of the big worries that's going on today in terms of the market share, financial, economic world. And then the market worries. Let's just read this little part from CNN. U.S. stocks fell sharply on Friday after China announced it would retaliate. The Dow fell more than 1,000 points, or 2.7%. The broader SP 500 traded more than 3% lower, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq composite lost 3.5%. Okay, so the stock market is plunging drastically. That's what it's saying. Okay, and then let's look at what the opposition says. So this is CNN Business. Let's look at what the opposition has to say. Okay. Now this is Fox Business, everybody. Let's see what it says. Trump's China tariffs face legal challenge from conservative group calling them unlawful. So there's a conservative group that's challenging Trump's trade policy. The suit comes just days after President Trump unveiled his tariff plan. Okay, let's see. Okay. So a conservative lead group is challenging President Donald Trump on tariffs, calling them unlawful attempt to make Americans pay higher taxes on Chinese imports. The New Civil Liberties Alliance filed an initial complaint to Florida District Court on Thursday. This is Florida, challenging Trump's unlawful use of emergency power to impose a tariff on all imports from China. They said in a statement, by evolving emergency power to impose an across-the-board tariff on imports from China, the statute does not authorize President Trump to misuse that power, usurp Congress' rights to control tariffs, and upset Constitution separation of powers. So they're saying that the Congress should be the ones who really is making the decisions. And obviously, there's a lot of people upset, left and right, middle, everybody's affected by this. People are going to have to pay more, and this is a trade-off because Trump is gambling right now, you know, um, because there's really two fronts to this. Trump is either betting that, from now on, it's going to be the golden age of America, and we're going to start now having a tariff war with the countries. From now on, we're going to produce and manufacture our products and our goods in the United States. We're going to tariff all the exports coming in to the country. We're going to bring back manufacturing. We're going to bring back automotive jobs. That's what he's saying. But if it doesn't work out, this might be the biggest fail. It's hurting his base. It's hurting his people. It's hurting the people who voted for him. It's hurting, the people, just the general party of the Republican Party. Why impose tariffs on all of our allies? Why impose tariffs on our closest friends and allies? Is it right or wrong? Is it just or unjust? And we're going to look at what people have to say. So some strong critics of this have been from the right. Okay. Okay, so let's look at this. This is the reaction from the right on these tariffs. Let's see. Okay, so Ben Shapiro, a far right commentator, or just a Republican commentator. We don't have to call him far right. Sorry about that. Ben slams Trump's probably unconstitutional tariffs as one of the biggest tax increases on American consumers in the history of America. Okay, let's check this out.
Yesterday,
and this guy's on Trump's side. Okay.
Yesterday, President Trump declared that it was in fact Liberation Day, his giant tariff policy that he just dropped on the market unilaterally, probably unconstitutionally. Trump's reciprocal tariffs impose hundreds of billions of dollars in new taxes on Americans, be the largest tax increase since the Revenue Act of 1968. One of the biggest tax increases on American consumers in the history of America. And it's going to cost American consumers. It will cost American producers who use inputs from other countries. The Dow Jones Industrial Average plummeted immediately more than 1,000 points. The S&P 500 plummeted more than 3%. The NASDAQ plummeted almost 4.5%. There are real world implications for this sort of stuff. Trade wars are in fact not good and not easy to win, particularly if you don't actually have a plan. It is predicated on a bad idea of how international trade works. A fundamental misunderstanding of trade deficits. Trade deficits they're an accounting procedure. Trade deficits have pretty much nothing to do with the health of an economy. I can name you a period in American history where there was a fairly large surplus in America's balance of trade. The entire Great Depression.
Okay, so basically saying, let's see if you can find that trade. Okay, so here's a quote. Ben Shapiro calls Trump's tariff the largest tax increase on Americans in the history that will decimate the economy, and one that stems from a complete misunderstanding of how international trade works and a misunderstanding of how trade deficits. Shapiro notes that the only time in history that the U.S. had a trade surplus was during the Great Depression, guys. This is coming from the right. People are reacting. People are saying, is it good or is it bad? Let's see what the market has to say. Okay. So people say that I'm not sure about. I'm not so sure this is a tax at all. This creates competition. Competition creates innovation and cheaper production. We will see short-term pain for sure, though. Okay. I was sort of unsure, but now I'm convinced liberation was based. Okay, if this Jew doesn't like it, then it may be good for us. Okay, so I'm glad that more people on the right are starting to realize how retarded these tariffs sound. Did he vote for Trump and that he's attacking him now? MAGA, we believe Trump has a divine plan. We trust him to wreck the economy and fix it again. Okay, and this is what the market's saying, guys. Okay, Ben Shapiro, these tariffs are a massive blunder. It's one in a never-ending stream of blunders and a blatant corruption over blatant corruption, compromised national security, thoughtless abuse of sincerity, psychological and physical. Okay, it is going to take a fucking catastrophe. Oh, okay, I can't see this, guys. Catastrophe. Okay, I can't see that word. Okay, catastrophic. Okay, catastrophe, guys. Holy shit, I can't see that at all. Okay, to get these people out of office, or you'll speak out against it. Okay, so basically, a lot of people are disagreeing with Ben Shapiro on this take, But what do you guys think, And these are Republicans against Trump who are posting Ben Shapiro content to make their point. Guys, this is another thing that's dividing the right, you know. If it's not Israel, it's this Trump tariff that's affecting small businesses, regular people, middle class folks who have no partake in, wanting to have a deal in this trade war. Okay. And obviously, people keep feeling this way. Yeah, and just to marker, just react to that, how Ben Shapiro feels about this subject because he just have a huge platforms. Okay. Okay, so I mean, in his own show, he says we analyze the economic fallout from Liberation Day on his own show. So he definitely disagrees with Donald Trump on this issue. He thinks it's a massive blunder. He thinks it's the wrong move to make, Because why is Donald Trump making this decision when it's the most unpopular, A lot of people don't agree with, a tariff policy, left and right? So, and obviously, let's look at the stock market right now. These numbers are insane, guys. Nope. Get it in. Jeez, I can't spell for anything, guys. Okay.
10% of Americans own 88%.
Okay, this guy says a most articulate perspective on Trump's tariff strategy, a stock market turbulence. Stop whining about the market. This is what this guy says. Stop whining about the tariffs of the market. This is Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary.
Across households, the distribution of equities across households, the top 10% of Americans own 88% of equities, 88% of the stock market. The next 40% owns 12% of the stock market. The bottom 50 has debt. They have credit card bills. They rent their homes. They have auto loans, and we've got to give them some relief. That I was struck by the statistic from last year.
That's the message right there. Just as a bystander, I'm like, wow, okay.
All right. Or that I like the examples, and I was really struck by two different statistics last year. Summer of 2024, Americans took more European vacations than they had in history. Summer of 2024, more Americans were using food banks than they ever have in history. I went into two food banks near my hometown to ask, what's the story? And they said, it really takes, for a lot of people, it's a loss of dignity to walk in a food bank. Of course. But they were seeing a new phenomenon, that it wasn't their traditional clientele. It wasn't people who'd lost their homes. It wasn't people out on the street. These were working families who could no longer, $100 at the grocery store, that basket of groceries every week, they were missing 5, 6, 7 things, and they were coming to the food bank to top up. So that's not a great America.
Okay, so he's making the argument that, it's going to be hard right now and everything's going to be turbulent because it's a new presidency, it's a new policy. So it's an unpredictable market, but, people are stressing about it. And it's not just that easy to be like, don't just, stop thinking about it, Okay, let's look at this tweet. This is according to I am meme, therefore I am. Remember, folks, the stock market is not the economy. The richest 1% own 70% of the stocks. The richest 1% own 50% of the stocks. The bottom 50% own 0.07% of the stocks. Repeat after me. The stock market is not the economy. Okay, so this guy's making fun of it. This guy's stupid. Okay, the mainstream media was silent when the stock market dipped under Biden. That's just it. Okay, and that's what we said, like, the top 10% of Americans own 88% of equities and 88% of the stock market. The next 40% own 12% of the share market. So there's a massive shift in, income equality, wealth disparity, and stuff like that. The president said, "Dear boomers panicking about the stock market, no one is going to hand it to you. You have to earn it. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's called hard work." Okay. What else do people have to say about this, guys? Trump is not crashing the stock market, but accidentally he's doing it on purpose. And it's freaking genius. By taking equities, he's forcing cash into U.S. treasuries that makes Fed/rates.
Forcing cash into U.S.
Okay, let's see what this video says.
Trump is not crashing the stock market by accident. He's doing it on purpose, and it's freaking genius. By tanking equities, he's forcing cash into U.S. treasuries. And that makes the Fed/rates. Lower rates equal cheaper debt for the U.S. to refinance trillions. Drop mortgage rates. Weaken the dollar, and boom, exports take off. This is 4D economic warfare, and it's working. The elites are panicking right now. But the middle class, they're about to eat. Now, here's the wild part. His tariffs aren't about trade wars. They're about forcing companies to build in America. No one wants to pay the penalty, so they move their operations here. And farmers, they're selling more products inside the U.S., slashing grocery prices. Eggs are already down. Inflation is cooling. Jobs coming back. He's turning every pressure point into a middle-class power move. And get this, 94% of stocks are owned by just 8% of Americans. So when Trump hits the market, he's hitting the 1%. He's taking short-term pain from the rich and flipping it into long-term gains for everyone else. Warren Buffett just said, these are the smartest economic moves in 50 years. You're not watching chaos. You're watching a calculated reset. Learn how to ride this wave, or you're going to miss out on the biggest wealth transfer of our lifetime. Visit Chad.
Okay, so this guy's obviously pro. He's taking a middle class perspective about this situation. Then basically, the only that tariffs do, in fact, if not cost the consumer more to pay for goods, it increases the production in American manufacturing and American production. If we are incentivizing American growth and American products over exports or foreign countries, that's why we're putting tariffs on them, right? So it's interesting the different sides of the argument, but obviously the majority of the people don't like tariffs. All right, that's what I'm getting at. But there's people who do make sense of them, right? Let's see what else is said. Okay, the U.S. stock market has lost around $7 trillion since Wednesday, over $11 trillion since Trump took office. Obviously, this is, each marketplace and each percentage of, stocks have all lost some kind of, percentage of their market cap, market space. Probably not in terms of like, their market value, but like in terms of like how much it's worth right now. Let's keep going. The stock market is crashing. Okay, this guy is crashing out over it, right? This guy says the stock market is crashing. Trump has won everything. This is the end. Or to quote the great Dave Chappelle, and I hear me out when I say this, you could shut the fuck up. The stock market has simply wrung out Biden's last gasp of free money before he lost the election. We are back to where we were a year ago. Okay. So, he's just saying that, what, um, right now, the state of the economy is where it was when Biden first took office, which it looked like it is, what people can say left or right. It's bad or good, but these are actual policies that are going to be permanent. It looking like. We'll see what Trump does, right? What else? What else do we have? Sinovich says, I don't give a shit about the stock market. I care about my country returning to its full might. Fuck off with your snobbery, your COVIDian bugmen who lack nobility or spirit. You are all gross. Alright, some people say that's based. This guy. Bring it back. What does this one say? People who don't have much of stock market investment who have been screwed by offshoring and globalism for the past 30 years. Okay. Ooh, Robert Kiyosaki said, oh shit, that's a lot. I'm not gonna read that. No, we're not gonna read that. Sorry, guys. Even though he is definitely respected, okay, we all know what that said. We all know what that said. And obviously, China's reacting to it. What does the opposition say? Let's see.
Controls. Europe has price controls on American goods all the time, including prescription drugs, which is part of the reason why Americans pay such high prescription drug costs. So there's a lot of things that the president is trying to tackle here. Obviously, there is consternation in the market, and that is something that we have to aggressively watch. But I think he's obviously trying to reshape the way that trade, engages around the globe. And from the standpoint of fair trade and free trade, the fact is that when you see how these countries have put high tariffs, high barriers to entry, and price controls on U.S. goods, that is not free and fair trade. The fact is we have had a negative trade imbalance for years. And many of my Democratic colleagues, you can go back to 2008, you can go back to 2018, Chuck Schumer, Bernie Sanders, they supported tariffs. They supported it because, number one, they wanted to see U.S. goods being able to be exported. They also support it because they wanted jobs coming back to the U.S., including manufacturing jobs. So I think, look, if you look at it in a one-day, 24-hour period, of course, people are going to have a negative reaction. The question is how this plays out in the coming weeks, and what is the overall turnabout. I just saw Kosovo, for instance, come out and say, we are, lowering all tariffs against U.S. goods. So the question to me is this an effective negotiating tool in the immediate? And I do believe it is a negotiating.
Okay. And obviously, let's take a look. Mike Lawler, obviously, he is a... I disagree with that take. And obviously people have strong feelings about how it's going to affect it, personally within like food, supplies, cars, stuff like that. But in the long run, if you do own a stock dividend portfolio or some kind of investment, you're going to be affected by stuff like this. This says, I really hope and pray Bitcoin doesn't scam us with delayed relation to the stock market carnage we are seeing now, okay? Okay. So, let's take a look at right now what is trending in the news. What is trending? Let's see. All right, Laura Loomer, MS-13, Scoop, Gaza Genocide, Bitcoin, my iPhone, Far Driver. Let's see. SmackDown, Charlotte, Drag Race, Gritty. Okay. And obviously, right now is a big turmoil in what is breaking in foreign policy, obviously. We can check out what's going on, I guess. Obviously, there's a lot of people who are taking actually let's not look at that. We might get banned for for that. I have to check if we can do that. MS-13's El Salvador, okay. Because remember, this is a guy who got illegally deported, according to sources. Let's see, look at this. Caroline Levitt just destroyed an activist, just according to Nick Soiter. Trump to return to alleged gang member MS-13 to the U.S. We suggest a judge contact President Nayib Bukele because we are unaware of the judge having jurisdiction or authority over the country of El Salvador. Absolute fire. Okay. Let's see.
Federal judge right now, an Obama-appointed federal judge has just ordered the Trump administration to make immediate arrangements to return one of the more than 200 alleged gang members who were deported to El Salvador last month. The judge says that Kilmar Abrego Garcia's deportation was illegal. Right now, an Obama-appointed federal judge.
Okay. So there's people claiming that, maybe innocent people got rounded up on the way to El Salvador. Let's see. Okay, so this is 3 more, according to FBI Director Kash Patel, 3 more MS-13 gang members arrested. This administration breaking violent gang operations, bringing them to justice, and making America street safer. Thank you, Pam Bondi. Let's see what she has to say.
Very, very important. And today we're here to announce the arrest of 3 more MS-13 gang members who were in this country illegally, and they were in Florida. And we will be reviewing them. They've all been arrested for first-degree murder. We will be reviewing them to see if we will seek the death penalty. This has been a long-running investigation that started in 2015. The victim in this case was brutally murdered, stabbed approximately 100 times by multiple gang members before he was shot in the head. He suffered tremendously. And these indictments are a warning to all criminals. We don't care how long ago you committed the crime. We don't care where you go. We will find you, we will arrest you, and we will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law.
Wow, okay. That's Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, saying, you know what, we're going to keep targeting MS-13 gang members. Let's see what the market reacts to this. Make America get great again, said, oh, come on. Sorry. This is what real leadership looks like, locking up violent criminals and making America safer again. Keep it up. Oh, Cassandra Lee, this is, let's see, Cash, when you were doing podcasts before you became the director of the FBI, you said you had evidence of a deep state corruption and you're ready to take them out. This is why we supported you. Let ICE and the local police deal with illegals and gangs. You and Pam have promised a lot more, and we've seen nothing, absolutely nothing. Did we support the wrong man, Cash? Are you a liar and a fraud like others? And people say, I mean, obviously, this is, a tweet at, with Donald Trump's directive and Donald Trump's appointees. You know what? Is Kash Patel the right guy for the job? Is Pam Bondi the right girl for the woman for the job? Obviously, they both talked about erasing the deep state, out with the old, in with the new, a new generation of leadership, clean house. They think there was a lot of corruption, a bureaucracy, a form of, like high structure, World Economic Forum, liberal, Democrat, world order in a form of an establishment, deep state, but they haven't done anything about it and they haven't been talking about it. So is it real? Is it fake? What are they going to do about it? Where are the F-15 files? Where are the MLK files? Are we going to get the release of the rest of the JFK files? So these are valid questions, but I appreciate the MS-13 things, because people are saying, let's see what else I have to say. Why is the Attorney General holding the United States press conference on Iran gang members? Okay. And this is the guy who says anything right. Let's look what this says. Why is the Attorney General of the United States holding a press conference on Iranian gang members? Why is the head of the FBI mentioning these random low-level gang members? Why aren't they going after the big fish? Oh yeah, that's right, because they are compromised. What happened to shutting the FBI down, Cash? Okay. So this is more criticism of the same exact thing, are we
important. And
trying
today,
Tam and Bondi to bring back and restore American order? Are we telling them to release the deep state? What is going on with Cash Patel? What else is this? Okay, this is what I'm talking about. Look at this, guys, gals. Zero Epstein clients. J6 committee, inside traders in Congress, COVID tyrants, corrupt judges, Russia, hoaxers, and on and on and on. But keep throwing us bones. You don't need to tell us about every illegal migrant arrest. We expect you to just do it. That's a good point. We would like to see traitors arrested, though. Okay, so, more criticism. And this is, instead of praising these people, Cash Bonnie and Pash Patel, we're going to criticize them. Why would we praise them? You work for us. We want more. We want the Epstein files. We want, more stuff. And people aren't satisfied within Trump's camp and the Democrats. Because who is satisfied of Trump's camp? This is a mess. And Cash Patel's acting like everything is good. No, it's not. Yeah, look at this guy. If she goes on TV every time a criminal or two arrested, she won't have time to do anything else because according to my arithmetic calculation, you need to arrest and deport 8,000 illegals a day to be on target to finish the job by the end of Trump's term. Ooh, good point. Strong point. Criticism of Pan Bondi. What the fuck is she doing? Look at this. Okay. We were promised mass deportations. 53,000 is a joke. Up to March 11th, 2025, Newsweek reported 36,000 deportations, citing ICE data for the first 50 days, averaging 720 per day. March 11th to April 4th, 2025. No official updates exist for these 24 days. If we assume the same pace, 720/days, that's an additional 17,280 deportations. A total estimate of 52,280 deportations by April 4th, okay? So people are mad and people are upset at Cash Patel and Pam Bondi of the Trump administration on their own side because they're not keeping their promises. Trump people and MAGA people, on their own side, the far right, they want mass deportations and the Epstein files, but they're not giving to them. So Trump is failing on that notion too. Well, not Trump, but we'll say it's Trump appointees, right? And people saying just like more, just it's not good enough. Okay. And obviously, Nayib Bukele, this guy, he said, we're the moral capital of the world. We turn it into a safest country in the Western Hemisphere. In 6 years, Bukele has eradicated MS-13 and is good, okay? Obviously, we know that. Okay. But you know what? That's what the people are saying. That's what the market is saying. That's what it's favoring. But let's see what else is trending today, guys. Chuck Schumer. Let's look at what the Democrat old man has to say. Okay, so let's look at this video. Chuck Schumer explains the number one reason illegals come to the U.S. so they can defraud programs like Social Security.
In support of the amendment. First of all, Social Security, I thank the gentleman, salute him for his work on this, rise in support of the amendment. First of all, Social Security card is used from one end of America to the other as an identification card right now. Who are we kidding? If you want to pass a law and says it shouldn't be, I would ask the chairman and the distinguished minority member of the Social Security committee to pass that law, but let's admit the truth. Everywhere people go, they're asked for a Social Security card. In fact, one way to prove you're a bona fide person who can have a job is to ask for a driver's license and a Social Security card. This is an anti-fraud amendment. All over where we go, people say, well, why can't you stop illegal immigrants or others from coming here? And the number one answer we give our constituents is when they come here, they can get jobs, get benefits against the law because of fraud. And here, the gentleman from Florida has put together the most effective anti-fraud measure we can find without it changing the actions of the government one bit. And we find all this opposition. Ladies and gentlemen of this chamber, what I worry about is that this bill, which started out with good intentions, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, is going to end up being the same kind of thing that the public gets angry with us on. We say we're doing something, and we do nothing. Because every time someone makes a rash...
Okay, so that's Chuck Schumer basically saying that, back then, when illegal aliens wanted to come in illegally, they wanted to gain benefits, gain Social Security, and stuff like that. And people are making the point that, this old footage is now an hypocrisy of what he's talking about now, how illegal immigration is good for America and how people need to come over and get these benefits and a path to citizenship. But, at the end of the day, people don't want this, right? And let's keep going, guys. Let's keep going. Let's see what happens. And look, AOC. Okay, and this is an infighting between liberal Democrats and progressive Democrats. Okay, according to Paul A. Okay, AOC is ahead of Chuck Schumer by 19 points for the 2028 New York primary in Schumer's re-election bid for U.S. Senate. The low IQ barber who curses at fellow New Yorkers is ahead of Schumer by a lot. This shows you how Democrat parties. Okay. And they're saying it because what the biggest news is there going to be a new leadership on the Democratic side? Is there? Is it since Joe Biden stepped down? Should Chuck Schumer step down? Should Nancy Pelosi step down? Joe Manchin step down? Is a new generational leadership mean clean house? What does that mean? What does this mean for everybody else? But AOC is leading the poll because she wants Chuck Schumer to sing. Think about that. Instead of running for re-election as a congressman every 2 years, you know what? Instead in 2028, when Chuck Schumer is up for re-election, instead of running for representative, you know what? I'm going to run for his seat. Primary him in his own state, in his own seat, and we're going to run against him. This is insane infighting by the Democrats. They're going at each other's neck. And yeah, it's very interesting, and this is the time now that a lot of people are getting angry at the foundational Democrats who are not attached to the political figures we currently have in power, such as the Chuck Schumers and Nancy Pelosi's of the world. But AOC is the next generational leadership. She's probably going to be up running with Gavin Newsom in the 2028 election. We'll see if she runs for president or not. We'll see if she wants to take the Senate majority leader, minority majority leader, right? But we'll see. Oh, what does the comments say? Oh, yeah. Obviously. Yeah, and people are commenting, well, AC is kind of a radical. AC is a progressive, lefty, which, in some cases she is or she isn't. Let's see what the, more people say about this, right? A throwback of Chuck Schumer services revealing that was very much okay. And obviously, people are talking about, should he get primary? Should he leave his job? Yes or no? And a lot of people just generally, outraged about some of the decisions going on facing this kind of stuff, right? But we're just gonna have to see, right? But I appreciate everybody for checking on this live. This is gonna be the end of the episode. I appreciate it was kind of a late stream. I know everybody's busy kind of on a Friday. We're gonna get this channel started, grew up and going. We're gonna keep practicing breaking news, breaking analysis, breaking down the details of what's happening in politics, religion, culture wars, and American. So appreciate everybody for listening up. And tune in next time. We'll talk about the deep state and Israel. Maybe see if we don't get canceled. Bye bye.